Welcome to Bleach Revisited. I am Karker Gold, your host of this series in which we will be reading every single chapter of the Bleach manga, providing critical analysis of the art and narrative, personal response to the chapter, as well as discussion of how this chapter connects to the rest of the series. As usual, we will be beginning the video with a reading of the chapter that we are currently on. This is chapter 69, 2500 Gathering. This one's really well made. I hope it's returned soon. You still watching that, Heyosu? That makes several days now. Aren't you bored with it yet? Oh, shut up, Akon. I found it. It's mine. I can look at it all I want. True. If you hadn't been scouring the world's radio wave broadcast, that guy wouldn't have been found. That's right, and if you hadn't requested the secret police investigate, it would have been in my hands by now. Come now. It should be returned to us today. Sounds like it's here. The guy is here! Good. Ha! Oh, yes, it's in perfect condition. I was afraid those fools in the quarantine department might have shaved it. Oh, it's here. Allow me to. Let me see it. Let me see it, Baldy. Yes, it's exquisitely crafted, but there's no signature. I wonder whose work it is. Who but Mr. Akon could make something like this? I don't remember this one. This has to be the chief's work. Who cares who made it? I'll be happy as long as I could do whatever I want with it. You guys should thank me. I'm the one who found it. Huh? What? Hey, take a look at this. What? What is it? What's wrong? What is this? What? This isn't the chief's work or anybody else's. Nobody should be able to do something like this. Nobody should be able to, but here it is. Yes, it shouldn't exist, but it does. One thing's for sure, whoever made this is no longer in the Soul Society. Why? Because possession of this kind of skill would be the reason to banish him forever. Alright, it's almost done. Bleach, Chapter 69, 2500, Gathering. This is all I have to do? At 1 a.m., 7 days from now, just open the window and wait. I get a really bad feeling. That breeze feels good. Huh? What the? Yeah, what was that? What is it? Gather in front of the Urahara Shoten immediately. Urahara. P.S. Whoa! Look at this mess. It looks like it was written by a murder victim with his own blood. This better go away. Huh? What? P.S. P.S. To those who saw this and thought it was written in a murder victim's blood horror movie cliche, you have no sense of humor, big time. Oh, shut it! See ya, Yuzu, Karin, Dad. Good morning, Ichigo! Ugh, you evaded my attack. Well done, my son. What are you doing? Before you went, I wanted to give you this. What's this dirty old piece of junk? Hey, it's not dirty. It's a talisman your mother gave me a long time ago. It'll bring you good luck. What are you thinking? I can't take this. Well, of course not. You can't have it for keeps. I'm just lending it to you for the trip. Give it back to me when you get back. Hey, don't just stare at it. You better give it back. If you lose it, I'll shave my beard off. It's mine. Sure, since when was shaving a threat? All right, I'll take it. Yeah. Orihime, Ichigo, did you get a summons too? Yeah. What's wrong? You don't look well. Oh, actually, I was told that I had no sense of humor. You too? Orihime, I got Mr. Yohara's message too. Then you're really going? Yes. You sure? Of course. I've made up my mind. All right. Then let's hurry. You? Hey, you're early, Chad. Yeah, I couldn't sleep. I was taking a walk and I got the summons right over there. Where? The neighbors are gonna love that. Where's Urdu? I heard he was coming too. Oh, I'm sure he'll be here soon. He's not coming. Chad! It's alright, Orihime. Urdu is. It might be better if he didn't come. You know, because out of all of us, he's the most complicated. And complicated things are usually fragile. That's just how it is. He probably is the most fragile out of all of us. If he's not coming, maybe it's for the best. If who's not coming? Are you? I said I was going to train because I couldn't accept losing to those Soul Reapers. Now I'm ready for a rematch, and I'll go wherever I have to for it. Are you? Thanks. No, don't thank me. It's got nothing to do with Miss Kuchiki. Can't you understand that? But when we get there, you'll see, Ichigo, how much stronger I've become. Are you? You walked all the way here in those goofy-looking clothes? You're studlier than I thought. They... They're not goofy-looking! Hey, the gang's all here. Excellent. Well then, inside I'll explain how to get to the Soul Society. Please listen carefully, otherwise you won't make it there alive. Ah! That is it for chapter 69, nice, of Bleach. Let me get back to the beginning of it, and then we can discuss both how the art and the narrative help to push this chapter forward and how they are working, kind of giving a bit of critical analysis of both and my own personal response to the chapter as well. So, we actually open up with a crew of characters that we have not seen yet before. The chapter title, notably 2500 Gathering, the idea of this being 1 a.m., so it would technically be 0100, but 2500, the idea of it being this extra sort of 13th hour, this midnight sort of beyond hour, I think is neat. It's certainly evocative, and that's why I say 2500, because it's clearly referring to time, and so it's the sort of military time 2500, which, as I noted, does not exist, right? But it is 1 a.m. whenever all of our characters come and get together at Urahara's shop. Anyway, this is not Urahara's shop. This is the Soul Society. And immediately we're getting these scenes of Rukia in her Gigai. Notably, these are actually shots from the Donkanoji event. So if you remember, that was broadcast. And in fact, this character, who we do not have named yet, but he is a bit of a creep. He was watching the broadcast, so he was actually picking up and watching various TV signals, and that's how he picked up the Gigai. Now, whether or not he was just doing that for his own fun, or because, of course, as we know, Shinigami are assigned to specific districts. So if he wanted to kind of spy on any place in the human world and he could tap into their broadcast, he could just look at everything that was broadcast from a specific area in the human realm, right? So it's actually, it's not as strange as you might think. And you have to wonder exactly the full extent of Soul Society's technology. Clearly, they have pretty advanced sort of, video technology, screens, and things like that. So while it might be easy to think of this place as maybe a bit archaic, certainly, they had like the sort of soul pager thing going on. There are things like this that are incredibly technologically advanced, and I love how kind of all over the place Soul Society's technology seems to be. Anyway, this one dude. Oh, I did say he wasn't named. He is named. His name is Hyosu. Always forget that. Anyway, moving forward, of course, we get introduced to Akon. I think these are the only characters that are named in this scene. It's Akon and Hyosu. And Hyosu, I don't know why he's got a handle on the side of his head. I guess he's just been biologically altered, And I gotta wonder if Akon also just naturally has these horns, or if that is an element of his sort of character that was modified as well. Because we get all these characters here in the research division, of course, because as we come to know, it was in fact them who were able to figure out, exactly that Rukia ski guy was running around. Um, but I have to wonder how much of these people modify themselves. All of that. We know from Rukia's expression that they are freaks, right? A bunch of those weirdos in the science division, the research division. Of course, Akon is kind of giving Hyosu a hard time, because he is obsessing over the ski guy, and it certainly comes off as perverse, if not in a sexual manner, at least in a weird obsession kind of way. Um, of course, we get the idea that he had been scouring the world's radio wave broadcast, and that's how he had been able to find it. I love this kind of crazy chair that he's in that we see him down here. And we have this other kind of weird lobotomy looking patient guy behind Akon that's just sort of following behind him that doesn't say anything. Sure enough, we get this back and forth that that Hyosu was able to find the Gigai, but it was in fact Akon who had requested the secret police investigate it because, of course, Rukia had been gone for 2 months, and they actually sent the mosquito drone, or I guess fly drone, is a fly, I believe, that was able to pick up on Rukia. Remember, Jinta smashed it, and so that was how they were able to get visual confirmation of Rukia being there, um, all the way back whenever all the events were happening with the Minos Grande. So we actually have Akon and Hyosu to blame for that, as far as figuring out where Rukia was exactly in the human world. But moreover, none of that would have come to pass had they not gone to that event with Don Kanoji. So yet again, it is yet another moment in how that kind of pivotal sort of Rockin' Future 7, this would be the moment that would change all of our lives. That event being broadcast ended up being incredibly significant. Not just for the rest of our characters all kind of coming together and it being a way for Ichigo to connect with Ishida, which then ended up developing powers for everybody because of their whole duel, but also because it's what tipped Soul Society off. So, it's interesting that, of course, that ends up being such a significant event within Bleach. I mean, it's told to us that it's a significant event, but it's kind of easy to forget just how many things came out of that. Anyway, sure enough, here we get this kind of absolutely bizarre sort of skull caterpillar call thing, like doorbell. It is shouting its call. as this lively character kind of shows up. I love these weird creatures that roll in on the front. There's like a frog guy and some little like mothy bug fella. So we really get that, like, man, there are a variety of strange inhabitants to the Soul Society, and we have to really wonder what the deal is with a lot of these characters. Of course, I love the difference in expression between Akon and Hyosu here, as Hyosu is very excited to look over this Gigai and to study it, and Akon is being more level-headed. Of course, we find that it is, in fact, Rukia's Gigai, which Kisuke had prepared for her. He's very glad that it's in perfect condition and hasn't even been shaved, which, eh, weird. Anyway, we get all these other creeps that kind of crowd around to check it out, including this terrifying looking clown man. Um, Again, really, really Kubo just going whole hog on these designs. I love that we get to see this stitching kind of Kiyosu's head, where maybe he had different things put into him and then stitched back shut. Uh, Again, very evocative and grotesque sort of designs. And it's no wonder. I think that Aeon's design being more reserved is maybe meant to make us align a little bit more with him and to care a little bit more about that character. Uh, that said, we kind of have this back and forth over the nature of the Gigai there. And here, of course, Akon says that it might be the chief's work, right? So we get this reference to a chief who might be capable of making an exquisitely crafted Gigai. Of course, we had the reminder back whenever Ruki was running around in her Gigai. We had her, talk about how these people really cared all about, they didn't make these Gigai with the form and function of like having muscles and being capable. He's like, those creeps at the R&D division making, all they care about is, aesthetic and boobs and butts and all of that. Why couldn't they give me more muscle? She says in that part. And so, of course, here we get to see those creeps. As we come to find out, it was Kisuke who prepared this Gigai, but he made it with a facsimile of Rukia anyway. So I don't know how much I can blame her on that one, but we certainly do get the creeps that care way more about the physicality of the thing. And we have to really worry about what these absolute freaks are doing, as he clearly pulls aside the leg of the ski guy and says he's happy to do whatever he'll be happy so long as he can do whatever he wants with it. Troubling stuff. Anyway, here we actually get Hyosu's crank put to work as his eyeball comes out of him and he looks into some part of Rukia's Gigai. And here again, hopefully this white part isn't just part of her leg, because if so, oh boy, he's getting up in there. Anyway, they're all kind of pressing in as he expresses that they should take a look at it and that there is something that is perhaps wrong. And Aeon, what am I saying? Akon realizes that there is a problem here. That this isn't the chief's work or anyone else's, and nobody should be able to make a Gigai like this. Of course, the significance of this is namely in that, one, obviously, Akon is perhaps the most talented of all of these people here, and that he's able to, at least the most perceptive, and that he's able to notice this thing about the Gigai that they didn't. But also, he brings up this idea that whoever made this is no longer in Soul Society because it would be reason to banish them forever. So, a little bit more insight into, obviously, Kisuke, right? Because there's nobody else that this could be pointing towards. We know Kisuke set up the Gigai for Rukia, and so if this was created by somebody in Soul Society, we definitely get the sense that someone in Soul Society for sure is up to no good, and maybe they smuggled this Gigai out and there's a huge conspiracy, or alternatively, Kisuke, who we know is on Earth for some reason and working outside of the law, is, the one that procured this Gigai for Rukia. So it fails to reason that perhaps this factors into part of Kisuke's sort of self-imposed or otherwise exile. Of course, to further that connection, we immediately page turn to Kisuke as he has this huge gate set up, seemingly kind of put together by all these sheets of some sort of paper. And it is almost done that he has this portal to, assumably, Soul Society. So, of course, we really get a sense that, yes, it is Kisuke who created this very blasphemous sort of Gigai. But for what purpose, what makes it different than a normal Gigai, we will come to find out. As far as speculation goes, of course, we can note that Rukia notably did never get her powers back, but whether or not that is an issue of the Gigai itself, or if it is something that was the nature of Ichigo taking her powers or anything like that, that's up for maybe more speculation at this point in the story. We continue to get our wintry kind of chapter covers as we have Ishin, Yuzu, and Karen sledding down this hill. But it's cute nevertheless. I like to see those characters having fun, being drawn in different ways. Of course, all of our typical visual motifs, the swept clouds, the moon, the power lines, and the time. It is, of course, 1 a.m. Ichigo, I love that he's kind of skeptical of Urahara's nonsense. And the second that he starts to have a moment of relaxation, this thing explodes in and kind of covers his wall in this bloody mess, which is a summons. Of course, the gag of, immediately being like, if you thought this was a murder victim's blood horror movie cliche, you have no sense of humor. I don't know, kind of funny. I love that gag kind of comes back a little bit twice in the chapter, one with the Orihime and then again with Chad. And I don't know, I think the hammering of it is particularly kind of funny. Of course, we get Ichigo sneaking out of the house, and Ishin, even though it's 1 a.m., being very aware of what his son is doing. And this is why I think that Ishin's kind of aware of, whenever I talk about like whether or not Ishin knows everything of what's going on, I don't know that he knows all the specific details. But I think that he is certainly aware of the kind of larger strokes of it, right? So, I think he gets the idea that Ichigo is going on this dangerous mission, probably to Soul Society to save somebody for whatever reason. But, of course, he is aware that Ichigo is leaving tonight for one reason or another and tries this final attack, but Ichigo being able to dodge it proves his growth and tenacity. Of course, he gives Ichigo this keepsake that is a talisman that his mother gave him. So this is a charm. These sorts of omamori charms are more of a thing in Japanese culture, obviously, but the idea that you have this kind of charm to keep you safe is significant, right? The idea is that something's put into it and you don't open it, and so long as you don't, it has some sort of power. Whatever helps these spirits sort of guide you one way or another, or look over you. So it's a cute kind of thing, and especially this being a thing that Ichigo's mother had given to Ishin a long time ago is really cute. Of course, Ishin, we have this kind of serious moment where he expresses that he's just lending it to Ichigo for the trip. And so we get sort of that moment that Tatsuki had with Orihime, this idea of like a promise you'll come back sort of thing. But here it's less from Tatsuki's side, or less from less from the person who's leaving, which was Orihime's side, and more from the person who is watching them go, coming from Ishin's side. So it's a neat reiteration of one of those sorts of things that we had, but this refactoring of you have this bond with these people, you should come back safe, please do. It's important to kind of know what these characters are fighting for and the people that they have connection too. And of course, with this, we really get the sense that Ishin is more kind of aware, especially as he gives this protection kind of talisman to Ichigo. Of course, Ichigo takes it and heads off. Uh, Again, we get those kind of visual motifs to help, really sell. Yes, they're going on this big supernatural journey. It's interesting because obviously we're going to be moving to Soul Society, which isn't set in that urban environment, but nevertheless, those telephone poles do endure. I say telephone poles, power lines. Anyway, Ichigo, of course, runs into Orihime, who must have gotten the summons just recently. I mean, she does confirm that. Uh, of course, Ichigo, as far as we know, Ichigo wasn't aware of whether or not Orihime and Chad were going to be coming with him on this journey, or even, Uryu, because as far as Ichigo's perspective goes, he doesn't know that they gain powers, right? Or doesn't know the extent of their powers. Because I don't know that they ever told him, right? Am I wrong? Um, maybe that was expressed to him at some point between the what is it, the Minos Grande encounter. But like that's whenever they were kind of put to the side and they had to decide whether or not they were going to come on their own. And then after that, they're all going to go on their own kind of training vacation things, and then Ichigo doesn't see them during that time either, as he's training with Urahara. So, if I'm remembering correctly, yeah, like as far as whether or not Orihime's actually going to come with them, I mean, she did talk about Rukia right after the fact. They did have that conversation about going to the Soul Society, and that she was going to support him and all of that, and she was all for it. So maybe Ichigo can intuit a bit of that, but I don't know the full extent of the conversations they've had regarding all of this, right? Um, and of course, I love Chad just chilling there at the shop, with his fingers kind of interlaced, just waiting on the others. Um, of course, I like the idea that he was just taking a walk and he got the summons like just down the street. It's pretty good. Uh, Of course, I love this design for Chad, where he's just got this sleeveless shirt, of course, to show off his guns, but also because we know he has the transforming arm deal, but also the one kind of black line through the white shirt. Not only kind of creates a kind of cool visual for his character, but also reiterates the sort of like the kind of design of his arm that he has too. So it's neat design nevertheless. Better. I say better, more than what we're getting from the other characters here at the very least. The other big deal is, of course, we have this back and forth about whether or not Uryu is going to come. I like that Chad kind of reflects on all of this, and this is the most we've gotten maybe Chad talking in a single moment ever in the manga so far. But he reflects a lot of this that maybe he's kind of been internalizing for a while. That you know he's really thinking about how complicated Uryu is about all this, and that how complicated things are usually fragile, and that he might be the most fragile out of all of them, and it might be for the best. And it's kind of interesting that Chad has that sort of outlook on things, especially because he tends to have a simple sort of way of approaching things. He tends to be very pragmatic, or at the very least, very like if X then Y about how he lives his life. Of course, Ishida does show up dressed in his pretty Quincy garb. He's got this little mantle going on. His shoes have these crosses on them. He looks done up to the nines, and sure enough, he insists upon the fact that yeah, he was training so that he could, win against Soul Reapers. He can now have this rematch. Of course, he insists that it's not has anything to do with Rukia, but instead that he wants to prove how strong he's been and all of that. But I think it's less that it's a thing about that and more about this connection that he has to Ichigo and even to an extent to Rukia. He was there, and he did try to stop Renji and Byakuya from taking her in the middle of the night. So I think he does have more connection than he lets on. Sure enough, we get Kisuke kind of come out here as everybody's been gathered, and he expresses that sure enough they won't make it alive if they don't listen carefully. So immediately the danger is kind of amped up to us, and we get all of our characters in one place. So all in all, really, that's what this chapter is doing. It is sort of a send off for Ichigo, of course, with his father, in a way that we really didn't get in the previous chapter, but that we got for Orihime. And then otherwise, it immediately kind of gets all of our characters together in a singular chapter, has a few moments of lightheartedness, but then immediately establishes the danger. The other big thing that this does is that it introduces us to more of those Soul Society characters, right? To Hiyosu and Akon and these research division folks that are all looking into, like literally or figuratively, gross, Rukia's Gigai, and discovering that there is something blasphemously wrong with it. So I think those are both the kind of really significant moments. Obviously, that exchange between Ishin and Ichigo, and that whole moment with Rukia's Gigai. So I like that we're given the kind of Gigai moment, because there's always been, a lot of like this sort of, why am I not getting my powers back? This focus on the Gigai, and I like that gets brought to an even greater head here, and that the nature of Kisuke is being brought into question, right? Um, so there are larger kind of things being brought up and put forward. We have even more reason to see Kisuke as this suspicious kind of fellow, but he is on our protagonist's side, so we're going to root for him nevertheless, most likely. We have a lot of things that complicate Kisuke, right? So it's interesting that we continue to get even more of those. I like here that we have our 4 characters, and then we also get 4 different, power lines, and that they have all these connections between them. Whether or not that's supposed to kind of be significant of this connection between all of these 4 people, and that they are rising up out of this urban environment into the night sky, and together they will share this sort of power. I don't know. Might be stretching. But nevertheless, it's a cool composition here as we get everybody turning to face Kisuke, who just kind of waddles on in. I love Kisuke's big, like spread-legged walk, his swagger on in. Sure enough, this is a solid chapter. I think it does all the things that it's meant to do pretty well. Again, not my favorite sort of standout. The moments that we do have, I think, work for what they are, but they aren't the sort of things that you write home about. You don't usually hear people being like, "Oh man, that scene where Ishin gave Ichigo the talisman," or like, you remember whenever all the people in the research division were looking up Rukia's legs? I sure don't. Anyway, that is it for discussion of this one. I mean, are there any other kind of things in the art or in the narrative that you want to talk about that aren't spoilers? Please let me know in the discussion in the comments. Of course, if you do want to talk about spoilers, that's fine too. Just make sure to mark your comment as such. Speaking of spoilers, we're going to be getting into those right now as we talk about how this chapter connects to the rest of the series. So, of course, opening over at the research division, we don't get a lot from Hiyosu later on. He is a character that does show up throughout all of Bleach, but he doesn't do anything overly significant from what I remember. It is kind of wild because I didn't remember him being exactly the one that was responsible for finding Rukia's, Gigai, right? So that is kind of notable at the very least that there's that accomplishment to tack on to this very minor character. But I remember that he gets stabbed in Thousand Year Blood War, because he's there whenever they Bambietta and I think Pepe both attack the Fourth Division barracks, I believe. But otherwise, yeah, I don't remember a lot of this character doing anything else other than being a weirdo. Sure enough, Akon, of course, he gets to do plenty throughout Bleach and ends up being a pretty significant character. Um, it's strange because I always expected Akon to be maybe elevated to lieutenant throughout all of Bleach, but I don't know that he ever gets a number position even from the top of my head. Maybe he's like third or fourth seat, but yeah, it's strange. We do get to see Akon even in the Hell arc, which is pretty cool. Uh, I don't think what he does there is anything other than a Keto, because yeah, it's got a whole incantation and it doesn't affect. Um, Reads a lot to me like Akito. It's also a weird mahjong reference, which I guess I'll have to keep in mind, if I'm looking at Akon beforehand. But I like Akon as juxtaposed to all the rest of these kind of weirdos, because Akon's certainly a weirdo in his own right, but a cooler kind of weird. I definitely get the sense that Kubo loves this gaggle of strange perverts, nevertheless. Um, sure enough, we get the kind of the like weird knocker that is here in the Fourth Division. That caterpillar with a big skull deal. That, of course, seems pretty evocative of Mayuri's Bankai. Um, so that's neat, right? Design wise, that's kind of been here from the get go. But we think about butterflies, right? So, right, caterpillar into butterfly into these hell butterflies. This big skull, obviously being evocative of death, and yeah, I don't know about the kind of bled out eye sockets and the blindfold cover over it. It's pretty grotesque looking, all things considered. Anyway, um, I do love the cheerful little Twin Tails character that rolls this in, and I love the little bug men, like the little bug guy and the frog man that run in that are wearing Shihakusho. I want more stories about those fellas, right? Anyway, obviously, big connection here is about Rukia's Gigai. I have no qualms that they're obsessed with it because they want to do all sorts of unsavory things, picking it apart. I don't think it's necessarily actually that they're going to have a bunch of ragged, crazy Gigai sex, but it's hard not to kind of read it that way, at the very least, with these absolute creeps. I think it's more, this very strange sort of fascination with this perfectly crafted Gigai, which of course, is an oddity to them because it's not one that any of them made. In fact, it is made by Kisuke, right? Um, of course, this body modification sort of thing is something that we would come to see reiterated with Mayuri. So, of course, his division having characters that are modificated. That's not even a word. Anyway, these body modified folks certainly fit within Mayuri's tutelage. Um, and sure enough, the idea that there is something wrong with this Gigai, that this person should not, is no longer in the Soul Society, because anybody that has that kind of skill, that would be reason to banish them forever. And of course, as we come to find, Kisuke has been banished from the Soul Society, not because of making this kind of Gigai, but because of all the events in Turn Back the Pendulum. Now, as far as the Gigai itself goes, obviously, I think the important thing with that is that it is a Gigai that quells someone's spiritual pressure, right? So I think the idea is that it was not going to allow Rukia to regain her power, and it would actually help to hide her among humanity. And so, you have to wonder exactly what Kisuke's plan was, because he was going to put he obviously he put the Hyogekyo inside of her Kanbagu, inside of her soul, and part of that maybe was that the Geek Eye House that helped to kind of put that inside of her soul. Uh, I gotta imagine, because we never actually see those events transpire. I don't remember if that gets explained to us or how deeply it gets explained. I guess we'll find out in this arc. But obviously, the significance of each, like of Kisuke knowing these sorts of ways of manipulating a body and kind of manipulating the Reiatsu, and like kind of trapping that or whatever, what have you, makes sense to banish somebody. Because I mean, if you were to stick a Shinigami into this sort of Gigai, it's essentially a prison for their soul. If they're not able to get out of the Gigai for whatever reason, then they're just screwed, right? Like, that seems pretty significant. So if you could trick a Shinigami into getting into a Gigai like the one that Rukia got into, now obviously she had lost her powers, so maybe there is that. Like maybe inside of a Gigai you can still do things like Kido, and they can be playing powerful if you have the Reiatsu there for it. But I think part of it is that the Gigai itself restrains you to an extent. So kind of wild, kind of an insane thing to think about. But yeah, there's more on this Gigai that I think is significant that I haven't remembered. Please let me know. But that's meant to be the case. And then of course we come here to Kisuke making his own kind of probably also forbidden gate to the Soul Society, right? So Kisuke up to all of the bad stuff. Here, I don't know why he didn't just call them all on their phones, other than this is a great gag moment, of course. Um, you know, Karen having to come and fix this later, right? There's no way Ishin doesn't know what is up after he sees this message. So, eh, eh. Say Karen, Yuzu. Yeah, Yuzu has to clean it up later, at least in the Omaki bit. Anyway, sure enough, we have Ishin jumping out here at last to give him this talisman, which we would get seen and referenced later on in Bleach, both I think in Turn Back to Pindom as well as around that time too. So it's cool that that comes back up. Um, and this idea of kind of having this thing to protect you is neat. I like that Ichigo gets these like kind of like trinket sort of reminders. You know, he has this is the ultimate kind of reminder of everything that he went through in the previous arc. This idea of his mother and protection and this thing, kind of thing coming up, and then he gets the substitute Shinigami badge in the next arc, and then he ends up. I wonder what he gets out of the Waco Mundo arc. I guess his mask, but he's always had that. So, a couple different things, right? Different little things. Um, yeah. Sure enough, Ishin does not have to shave his beard off. It's all fine, thankfully. I'm trying to think of any other big kind of connections here. Uh, obviously, Chad brings up this sense that Uryu might not come because he's the most fragile of them all, about this sort of complicated sense of things and them actually being more fragile. And that's interesting. I don't know how much that mentality really applies to later moments or characters or anything in Bleach, but it's a neat kind of mentality for Chad to have and more insight into his character than maybe we've gotten so far. Of course, Uryu shows up with the stereotypical kind of Quincy outfit with this big mantle and like the kind of cross design on even his shoes. What are you wearing? Um, yeah, it's good stuff. I do like the way that he is dressed here, and it's certainly evocative of the Quincy that we would later get to. That those sorts of mantles end up being worn by a lot of the Stern Ritter. So if this is a sort of outfit that he had prepared, especially one that his grandfather Soken prepared for him, then it certainly makes sense. But I could see him even sewing it himself, right? Of course, uh, Ishida insists on, getting much stronger and getting this sort of rematch. And as we know, he does get to have this ultimate kind of karmic battle with Mayuri. And he does get to prove how much stronger he's become, even if he does lose all of his powers during that. Of course, I like that Ichigo gives him a hard time about his clothes, but Ichigo would later come to wear a mantle anyway, and be resemble a Quincy more and more himself. Of course, here he mentions, to listen carefully because they won't make it there alive, and that is, of course, because of the, what is it? Not the Mukin. Boy, this is not going to come to me, whatever the term is. The gutter, right? They had to run through that in-between realm that, that Ichigo goes and trains in, and it's not coming to me at all right now. But there's the big train, the cleanser, that goes through it and destroys everything in the in between, right? Later on, Aizen destroys it, and then Ichigo is able to train there for an amount of time, right? So I believe that is what this is all a reference to. Anyway, that's it for this chapter. Not a ton to talk about, really. It's all pretty straightforward. But if there are any other connections to the larger manga that you would like to draw, if there are any things that you'd like to talk about spoiler wise, please let me know in the comments. Just make sure to mark your comment as spoilers. As always, remember to give the video a like if you've watched this far. I already like you for having followed this entire video and listened through the whole thing. Thank you. If you've been watching this series so far, I also suggest that you subscribe to it because that not only helps out the series, puts it in front of more people, but it also let you know whenever I upload anything outside of the usual sort of episodes, and it'll keep you informed about whenever my videos go up. I do try to stick to a pretty regular schedule, but sometimes that changes, and sometimes I do bonus episodes. So keep that in mind. The last way that you can support me is through Patreon, and right now you will be able to see on screen a full list of all of the patrons as of the recording of this video. Thank you so much to everybody that does support me at this level. It means the world to me. It is very helpful. And for those of you that are curious, you can support me for as little as $1 a month and as much as you like. And the description for that is the link for that is in the description for this video. So, once again, thanks for all of my Patreon supporters, and thank you for watching this far in the video. I am Karker Gold, reminding you that spirits are forever with you. Stay gold.